He started with nothing. No inheritance, no connections, no financial head start. At 17, Joseph was a shepherd's son in a family of 12 brothers. Unremarkable by every measure the ancient world used to predict success. Nobody looking at Joseph in that field would have predicted what came next. And that's exactly why his story matters. The wealth principles embedded in his life weren't the result of privilege or luck. They were the result of a specific way of thinking, a stewardship mindset that turned every circumstance, good and bad, into a building block. But before the wealth came the wound. Joseph's brothers hated him, threw him in a pit, sold him to slave traders heading to Egypt. Everything he had, his home, his family, his future as he understood it, stripped away in a single afternoon. Most people would call that a disaster. Scripture calls it a setup. Because the first wealth principle Joseph teaches us is this: your circumstances do not determine your outcome. Your response to your circumstances does. Joseph didn't know where he was going. He didn't have a financial plan or a roadmap. What he had was a character that refused to be defined by what had been done to him. And in the economy of God, that turns out to be the most valuable asset of all. The people who build lasting wealth are rarely the ones who had the most advantages. They're the ones who refuse to be defined by their disadvantages. The pit is the part of Joseph's story most people want to skip over. We want to get to the palace, but Scripture spends real time in the pit because something essential happens there. When you have nothing left, when every external resource has been stripped away, what remains is character. And character is the only wealth that cannot be taken from you. Every person who has ever built something meaningful has a pit story. The question is never whether you'll face one. The question is what you'll do while you're in it. When the Midianite traders pulled Joseph out of that pit and headed toward Egypt, he faced a choice every person in a financial crisis eventually faces. Do you spend your energy grieving what you lost? Or do you invest it in building what comes next? Joseph's posture in every difficult season was always forward-facing. He didn't camp in his pain. He moved. He served. He built, even when he was building someone else's household. That discipline of forward motion is a wealth habit long before it's a financial strategy. The pit teaches you something abundance never can. It teaches you what you're actually made of. It strips away every false source of security and forces you to find out what's real. For Joseph, the pit was the beginning of his education, not the end of his story. If you're in a financial pit right now, debt, job loss, a failed business, a scam that cost you everything, hear this. The pit is not your destination. It's your classroom. And the lessons you learn there are the ones that will hold when everything else is tested. Joseph arrives in Egypt as a slave. He owns nothing. He controls nothing. He has no legal rights and no financial standing. By every worldly measure, he has hit bottom. And what does he do? He works, he serves, he manages Potiphar's household with the same faithfulness he would have brought to managing his own. This is the principle that most people skip right over, the principle of faithfulness in small things. Your current assignment, however small or unfair, is preparing you for the next one. The way you manage what belongs to someone else determines whether God entrusts you with your own. Scripture says Potiphar noticed. He saw that God was with Joseph. He saw that everything Joseph touched prospered, and so he gave him more responsibility. This is the ancient pattern of wealth promotion that still works today. You don't get more by demanding more. You get more by demonstrating you can be trusted with what you already have. The steward who is faithful with little gets more. Jesus said this explicitly in the parable of the talents. Joseph lived it before Jesus taught it. Within a short time, Joseph was running the entire household. Not because he demanded it, not because he complained about his situation, because he was faithful with every small assignment until the next one came. Whatever you are managing right now, a small income, a modest budget, someone else's business, manage it like it matters. Because it does. Not just to your employer or your current circumstances, it matters to what comes next. Faithfulness is a financial strategy. Just when things were improving, Joseph was falsely accused and thrown in prison. No trial, no appeal, no justice system to turn to. Back to zero. Worse than zero. And once again, Joseph's response defines him. He doesn't spiral, he doesn't become bitter. He builds relationships, he develops skills, he interprets dreams. He serves the other prisoners. This is the wealth principle most people cannot stomach, the commitment to building even when there is no visible reward for doing so. In prison, Joseph met Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. He interpreted their dreams accurately. He asked the cupbearer to remember him when released. The cupbearer forgot for 2 full years. 2 years of waiting, 2 years of faithfulness that appeared to go unrewarded. This is the season that breaks most people financially and psychologically. When you've done everything right and nothing has moved. Joseph kept working, kept developing, kept serving. 2 years of unseen faithfulness preparing him for a moment he couldn't have imagined. The prison teaches the wealth principle of delayed reward. Most of the financial system is built around instant gratification, quick returns, overnight success. Joseph's story is built around the opposite. Every season of waiting was producing something in him that the next season would require. The character forged in the prison was exactly what the palace would need. If you are in a season of faithful investment with no visible return, keep building. What you're developing in the hidden season is the exact asset the next season requires. 2 years after the cupbearer forgot him, Pharaoh had a dream that no one could interpret. Within hours, Joseph was cleaned up, brought before the most powerful ruler on earth, and asked to explain 2 dreams. Joseph's interpretation was simple and clear. 7 years of abundance were coming, followed by 7 years of famine so severe it would consume the abundance. What Joseph offered Pharaoh wasn't just interpretation, it was strategy. He saw the cycle before anyone else did. And he had a plan. The dream revealed an economic cycle that has repeated itself throughout human history. Periods of expansion, followed by periods of contraction. Bull markets, followed by bear markets. The question in every cycle is never whether the contraction will come. It always does. The question is whether you're building during the expansion in a way that positions you for the contraction. Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but a foolish man devours all he has." Joseph didn't just predict the cycle, he proposed a solution. Appoint a wise man to oversee the collection of 1/5 of the harvest during the 7 years of plenty. Store it in the cities. Hold it in reserve for the 7 years of famine. This is the 20% principle embedded in ancient scripture. Set aside a portion of every season of abundance to fund the seasons that follow. The wealth builder who learns to save during abundance while others spend is positioning themselves for extraordinary opportunity when the contraction comes. Joseph was appointed second in command over all of Egypt. He was 30 years old. 13 years had passed since the pit. During the 7 years of plenty, Joseph traveled throughout Egypt, collecting 1/5 of every harvest and storing it in the cities. He collected so much grain that he stopped counting. This is the discipline that separates wealth builders from wage earners. During seasons of abundance, the temptation is to expand your lifestyle in proportion to your income. Joseph expanded the storehouse instead. The 7 years of plenty tested Joseph in a different way than the pit and prison had. Adversity tests your resilience. Abundance tests your discipline. It is far easier to stay faithful when you have nothing to lose than when you have everything to enjoy. Joseph had wealth, power, authority, and comfort available to him. He chose preparation over enjoyment. He chose the storehouse over the banquet table, not because abundance is wrong, but because he understood that the purpose of his current season was to fund the next one. Notice that Joseph was systematic about it. He didn't just encourage saving, he built the infrastructure for it. He identified the cities, he created the collection process, he appointed the administrators, he tracked the inventory. Wealth building is not a feeling, it's a system. The person who says they'll save when they feel like it rarely does. The person who builds a system actually accumulates. The discipline of abundance is building the system before you need it. When the famine came, it was exactly as severe as Joseph had predicted, and it spread beyond Egypt, across the entire ancient world. People came from every nation to buy grain in Egypt. While others were in crisis, Egypt was positioned to help. This is the strategic outcome of faithful preparation. Joseph's storehouse didn't just protect Egypt, It gave Egypt the ability to bless the surrounding nations. The prepared steward becomes the resource everyone else needs. Joseph's brothers eventually came to Egypt to buy grain. They didn't recognize him. Here was the man they had sold into slavery, now the second most powerful figure in the ancient world, holding the food supply that would determine whether their families lived or died. The famine that was meant to be their destruction became the mechanism of their restoration. This is not prosperity theology, this is stewardship theology. The prepared steward becomes a blessing in the crisis, not a casualty of it. The famine revealed who had prepared and who had not. It exposed the gap between those who had listened to wisdom and those who had ignored it. This is the pattern every economic contraction follows. The crisis of 2008, the pandemic shutdowns of 2020, the inflationary pressures of recent years. In every one of these seasons, the question was the same. Who built the storehouse? Who expanded the lifestyle? The famine doesn't create the gap between the prepared and the unprepared, it reveals it. The storehouse principle is the most practical wealth strategy in Scripture, and it predates every modern financial framework by 3,000 years. Store a portion of every abundance for the seasons of need. Don't devour everything you earn. Build reserves, create margin. In Joseph's context, it was grain and oil. In your context, it might be an emergency fund, investment accounts, real estate equity, or digital income streams. The principle is the same. Build storehouses during abundance so you have something to draw from during scarcity. Proverbs contrasts two types of people: the wise who store up, the foolish who devour. The word devour implies consuming without restraint, spending everything that comes in. No margin, no reserve, no storehouse. This is not a character flaw unique to poor people. Studies consistently show that lifestyle inflation tracks income almost perfectly for most people. The person earning $30,000 devours it. The person earning $300,000 devours it. The income level changes. The devouring pattern doesn't, unless the principle changes. The storehouse in your life today looks like this. Before you spend what comes in, set aside a portion for the storehouse. 10%, 20%. Whatever is possible in your current season. Not because you're afraid, because you're building. The storehouse is not a hoard. It is a tool. Joseph's storehouse was never for Joseph alone. It was for a nation and ultimately for surrounding nations. When you build financial reserves, you're positioning yourself to be a resource for others when their season of need arrives. Here is the detail in Joseph's story that most wealth teachers miss entirely. Joseph managed the wealth of an entire nation, but he never lost sight of the fact that it wasn't his. He was a steward, not an owner. The grain in the storehouses belonged to Pharaoh and to Egypt. Joseph's job was to manage it faithfully for its true owner. Everything you have has been entrusted to you: your income, your skills, your opportunities, your assets. You are a manager of someone else's resources. How you manage them determines what you're entrusted with next. The ownership mindset says, "This is mine, I'll do what I want with it." The stewardship mindset says, "This has been entrusted to me, I'll manage it in a way that honors the one who gave it." This shift changes everything about how you make financial decisions. The ownership mindset asks, "How much can I spend?" The stewardship mindset asks, "How should I deploy this?" Joseph's authority grew in proportion to his faithfulness as a steward, not in proportion to how much he claimed for himself. The steward mindset is the most countercultural wealth principle in this entire video. Every financial advertisement tells you to acquire more for yourself. Scripture consistently points in a different direction. Not because wealth is wrong, Joseph was extraordinarily wealthy, but because the purpose of wealth in a biblical framework is always larger than the individual who holds it. You are not the destination of what flows through your hands. You are a channel. Build the channels, manage them faithfully, and watch what gets entrusted to you. Joseph's strategy was not complex. It was consistent, faithful in every season, forward-facing in every setback, disciplined in abundance, generous in scarcity, managing what was entrusted rather than what was owned. These are not ancient principles that stopped working when the Old Testament closed. They are the operating system of every person who has built sustainable wealth with integrity across every culture and every era of human history. The question is not whether these principles work. The question is whether you will apply them. Here is what Joseph's strategy looks like in practical terms for your life today. First, be faithful in your current assignment, however small or unfair it feels. Second, build the storehouse. Set aside a portion before you spend. 10% minimum. Build the system, not just the intention. Third, when the season of abundance comes, resist the pull to expand your lifestyle and expand your reserves instead. Fourth, hold your wealth with an open hand. You are a steward, not an owner. Fifth, stay forward-facing. Your pit is not your destination. Your prison is your classroom. Joseph's story ends with a statement that is the theological capstone of everything we've discussed. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish the saving of many lives. The pit, the slavery, the false accusation, the prison, the forgotten promise, all of it was being woven into a purpose larger than Joseph could see from any single point in the story. Your financial journey is the same. Every setback has a purpose. Every season of faithfulness is building something. Every storehouse you build positions you to save, not just yourself, but others. That is the wealth strategy of Joseph. Begin today.